Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Graig Suvannavejh. He is the Managing Director at Mizuho Americas to discuss the recent launch of small mid-cap companies in the neuroscience space. Graig, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you very much for having me, Jill.
What's your overall thesis for biotech in general?
Yeah, look, we're bullish on biotech. We think it's an area where we continue to see great innovation in the space. Clearly, if you look at what's happened over the past several years with COVID, it was the biotech and biopharma industry that helped us come out of COVID. Obviously, we're seeing great advances on gene therapy, cell therapy, novel mechanisms of action. And so when you think about the high-end medical need that still exists out there, we're very long biotech.
What subsector do you cover specifically?
Yeah, well, I'm a generalist in terms of the sectors that I cover, but initially we've come out with some neuroscience names. We launched coverage about 2 months ago on 6 neuroscience names. I do have a background in neuroscience. I spent some time on the corporate side in neuroscience companies, and so it is a easy favorite place for me to want to go.
Why is CNS historically a risky space to be in?
Yeah, I mean, neuroscience, look, the brain is very complex. We have, our brain is very individualized, billions of neural connections. And so not every 2 people can be quite similar, even if you have identical twins. So the brain is very complex. I think everyone also responds very differently to different treatments. And so when you're developing drugs for neuroscience diseases, you don't always get a very uniform response. And also in neuroscience diseases, when you run clinical trials, sometimes these conditions, you're asking the patient how they're feeling, how they're doing, and that can be quite subjective. So not only is there a certain amount of chance that you might see with how a patient responds to a drug in terms of clinical trials, but the diseases themselves are not easy to tackle. And obviously we are certainly aware of the unmet medical need in diseases like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and ALS. So it does make investing in neuroscience a bit trickier.
What stocks are under your coverage and where are the opportunities?
Yeah, so we did come out on 6 initial neuroscience focused names. We came out buy rated on 5 and we're neutral rated on 1. But in terms of the names that we like particularly, we have chosen to focus on initially some de-risked later stage names. These are companies that have products already on the market. And 2 names in particular that we like and we've been talking to clients about is Intracellular Therapies. The ticker is ITCI. And there's also a company that we like called Harmony Biosciences. The ticker is HRMY. Intracellular Therapies has a new drug for schizophrenia as well as bipolar depression. We have a lot of drugs for schizophrenia, but compliance is a big issue with many of these patients, and that's because of some side effects that you see in the drugs that are available. So Intracellular Therapies has a drug called Caplyta, and Caplyta was just approved at the end of 2019, and so it's been on the market for about 3 years now. But the real opportunity was a recent approval that the drug got in bipolar depression. And there are only a handful of drugs that are available for bipolar depression. So a very high unmet medical need. There's probably about 4 to 5 times as many patients with bipolar disease versus schizophrenia. So we think that Caplyta, which is very early in its growth phase, has a large market opportunity. We currently model about $3 billion in peak sales from Caplyta in schizophrenia and in bipolar depression. And they're also running a phase 3 trial in major depressive disorder, or MDD, and we'll get data next year. And we think that could be an incremental $1 billion opportunity. The other name we like is Harmony Biosciences, as I mentioned, HRMY. It has a drug for narcolepsy, which is an orphan disease. The drug has been on the market for several years, and the company is already profitable. So with that in mind, if you look at investing in biotech and if you look at investing in neuroscience, we did at least lean towards names that were more de-risked commercial stage names. And we think both with Intracellular Therapies and with Harmony Biosciences, we think there are 2 good ones right there.
Yeah, it really is remarkable, to your point, Graig, before, that it is so complex, these types of sciences, and we think about it through the lens of investing in where we can make money for the short or long term. But to your point, the amount of research and the talent that goes into developing cures or treatment for these diseases that are so complex. I mean, especially when you're thinking about the nervous system and the brain, it really is remarkable. It's almost hard to wrap your head around if you're not in the field, just to understand what these scientists and researchers are doing.
Yeah, I think, biotech is always a high risk, high reward kind of sector. And I think neuroscience makes it even riskier. I think the things that we try to look for in terms of picking good companies and good stocks are companies that have, good, strong management teams that hopefully have executed in the past, whether it's with other companies or executed with the company that they're at right now. And in biotech, you're really trying to assess a drug and whether it's going to work or not in clinical trials. So we really try to look at the science. That's why many of us are typically more science types that have either advanced degrees. With that in mind, to be able to dig and do diligence into like the scientific literature and really try to look at clinical trial design and past clinical studies. These are the things that help us hopefully make more informed investment decisions.
Yeah, I mean, that really is a big distinction that you have to make between the science and also being able to operate a company. It really is fascinating, Greg. We appreciate your insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you very much, Jill.